Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Got another crossout video for us today. Now this one is going to be a little different. What we're going to do today is go over the most recent Steel Beast update for the game. But we're not going to go over every aspect of it. We're mostly just going to go, well, purely going to go after the balance changes for the game. That's where the meat of it is, in my opinion. Most people will be interested in these balance changes, and that is what's going to affect the healthiness or the unhealthiness of the game going forward. Is going to be what happens in the patch notes. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to go through said patch notes as quickly as possible, as expedient as possible. I am going to talk about each one. I'm going to say if it's a good idea or a bad idea, in my opinion. If something is good, I will say as such. If something is completely stupid in every way and I just think it's idiotic, I will also just state as much. So we'll jump straight in now, and we'll go on to the rotation speed reduction for all of the turreted cannons in the game. Now, I think this is a bad idea for those. The rotation speed has been reduced by 16%. Now, I think this is a bad idea for the most part because I think that if you keep reducing the rotation speed for these weapons, eventually it's going to get to the point where they are simply not viable on a wheel build. Now, the reason the devs are doing this is to try and curtail how good the fin whale cannon cars are in the game at the moment. But most of that fault, in my opinion, is based on the efficiency of the fin whale. The fact that it basically gives you guns twice the HP with the 50% damage reduction perk. I like the idea of having cannon cars in the game. They are a really fun playstyle, really unique type of build, really good to play, really good to play against. It brings more variety to the game at the end of the day. So I think they should have just stuck with a Finwell nerf, because you want builds like this to be viable, but obviously you don't want it to be overpowered. So I don't think the rotation reduction is necessary, to be honest. Okay, moving on to the Emily. It's getting a damage increase, it's getting a durability increase, and a mass increase. These are really good changes. Now, bear in mind that the Emily is a 360-degree grenade launcher, so it's meant to be exposed somewhat so that it can fire on all of those arcs. And the fact that it only had 120 durability is just stupid. It really, you could have doubled the HP of this thing and it still probably won't be too effective. The reason for that is because basically any weapon under 300 HP in this game just gets absolutely annihilated. Bear in mind, there's so many different damage buffs in the game. You got jackies and cabin perks and all that stuff, that weapons that need to expose themselves needs to be have Hydra, or they're just going to get annihilated, even with like fin whales and Omomoris and stuff. So it's a good change, but you could have honestly increased it even more. Moving on to Tempest. Right, now they've reduced the overheat of the Tempest by 33%. And for those who are aware, they might know that they were planning, the devs that is, on increasing the power consumption of Tempests and Whirls from 8 energy to 9. Now, that would have been an enormous nerf, especially on low power score, because these things, the Whirls especially, were incredibly strong at low power score, just because they were just so effective. But reducing the overheat by 33% feels like a decent nerf. I think the energy consumption increase would have just killed it or killed its viability. But something like this makes it still a substantial nerf, but not like completely taking it out of the meta. I think even after these changes, it'll still be strong. Hopefully it's strong and not overpowered, you know? So that's pretty good change overall. Falco, acceleration reduced. No one cares, no one plays helicopters. Genesis, increase the number of launches by 50% instead of 25. That's a good change. Now, I think more variety in the game is always a good thing, and any buffs you can give to barrier builds at the moment is good, because barriers are really unique playstyle. You can have like a support build, or you can use it just, as one player having one, or one player having several to support a team. So I think like they could use some buffs, and having more barriers to put down is just a good thing in my opinion. Okay, moving on to the hardcore. That's the special engine. Increasing reverse speed of wheel by 40%. So by the looks of it, they're just making all of the special engines having a mini version of the pick that their epic equivalents have, which is a really good idea, to be honest. So the hardcore, that's going to be a mini, what's it called, hot red. Razorback, increased durability, that's going to be a mini Colossus. And Dun Horse, that's going to be a mini cheetah by the looks of it. That's really good change, to be honest. They should have done this ages ago now that I think about it, because it just makes a lot of sense and it's just really easy to put in. So yeah, good changes for the most part. Moving on to epics. Now adapter durability, good durability increase and slightly more damage. That's a really good change. The same issue with the Emily's the adapters have, whereby they're meant to shoot in 360-degree arc, as said, but it's just too damn squishy. Don't they get absolutely annihilated? So you could have upped it to 300 or several or a little bit over, but I think it's going to be a nice change. I think that they will also be pretty good at low power score now, so I'll be very interested to see how viable these are at low power score. I might actually give them a try in the next battle for uranium. Okay, moving on to Gugnia. So the Gugnia and the is a nothing. They've changed that over the cryo damage. That's a really good change. Both from just like a logical loss perspective, because they're machine guns for it's a Hyperborealis faction, I think it's called. So it just makes sense that the Frost faction with the Frost guns also just diversifies the machine guns a bit, because I think there's like 5 or 6 machine guns of like epics and legendaries that basically all just do bullet damage. There's very little difference, for example, between a Gungnir and like a Spectre or an Aspect and a Northang. So putting that cryo in is really nice. Also be really interested to see now if you could do like a full freeze comp in Clan Wars, whereby you have, say, these Gugnirs, Northangs, Devourers, Narwhals all doing frost damage. I don't think you'll see them enter Clan Wars too often, just because heat is such a large part of Clan Wars, especially on console. Heating for your teammates, and obviously, if your Mastodon's heating the enemy and then you freeze them, it's going to annoy your teammate quite a lot, so it's going to be rather inefficient, but hopefully, it's a good change overall. It was a needed change. Okay, Jotun reduced the reload from 13 seconds to 12. It's a step in the right direction, but that's not enough. The problem with Jotun is it doesn't do much damage when it hits, and it's too easy for the enemy to drive out of the area effect, so your teammates don't get enough time to capitalize on the frost or the debuff. So I think the Jotun, you can reduce its reload, but I think it either needs to do more direct damage, or they need to be, the builds that are caught in the area effect need to be slowed considerably more, in my opinion. But it's a step in the right direction. Yokai durability increased. Blast radius increased. Yeah, you can buff the Yokais, but the problem is problem is inherent in their design. Yokais are basically very good at countering hovers and anything that they can shoot under the build and get explosion radius. Problem is that hovers already have plenty of counters in the game as is. You got Typhoons, the new Comet, you got Finwell cars rocking up on them, melees, Griffons, stuff like that. There's plenty of things in the game that can kill a hover, so you don't really need the hard counter of a Yokai. But yeah, it's like a buffing is fine, but it's not going to change much in my opinion. Corvo, damage increase, lost projectile damage increase. That's fine, that's a really good change. It's a step, yeah, like I said, step in the right direction, but the durability of Corvo was so low that they're just going to be shot off all the time, so I'm not sure it's going to change much. Probably would have been better to just buff the Dura. Alright, the Punji. Punji's getting a bunch of different buffs. That still won't do anything for anyone. No, that's like the electric fence thing they brought in. That weapon's always going to be crap because it's just a crap design. No one is really stupid enough to drive through that thing. It's just too obvious. The only builds that'll drive through that thing are bots. So I feel like in a Punji, you're in a bad situation whereby the only way you can really buff it is to make it very high damage. But if you put it in high damage, people are only going to use it for raids. So I think it's a stupid build. I think it's a stupid weapon. And it doesn't really matter what you do to it, to be honest. I don't think it's ever going to be useful. Blockchain. Remove the damage bonus in missions with battle walkers and armored aircraft. Right, I'm guessing that the blockchain was incredible at shooting at the frames of aircraft and the walkers, judging by these patch notes. So yeah, I guess if something can change that, that's fine, I guess, but it's not going to affect much. The Clarinet TOW, change of perk bonuses, commons increased, rate changes stays the same. Everything else is reduced. Basically, they're just nerfing the TOW, which is good because it's a very, I like the TOW in the sense that it's a very unique weapon, very unique playstyle, but it's incredibly easy to use. At the end of the day, you just put on a really fat build like Meat Grinders with 6,000 HP, sit at the back of the map and just shoot the missile all the time. So it was far too effective for how completely effortless it was to use. So the damage nerf is good. Ryen, bunch of different nerfs on the Ryen. That's good. I feel like it's still going to be a good weapon even after this nerf. This must be like the 5th or 6th nerf in a row for the Ryen. And even after all these, I feel like it's still going to be a pretty good epic weapon. Not maybe not overpowered anymore, but still decent. which is just insane when you think about it, considering how much it's been. I would love to be the guy who got his hands on like a fused Ryen for the first time. Must have felt like a god. But anyway, a step in the right direction. Whirl, time to overheat reduce, like the Tempest. Again, good change. I feel like the energy change nerfs would have been a bit too strong. It would have just took it out of the meta entirely, especially at low power score. So changing the overheat should be a sizable nerf, but not too much. So that's a good change. Tusks added 50% bonus to round damage. Round damage bonus from perk reduced. Round damage resistance increased. That's a good. I like that. Like I said, more variety in the game is a good thing. Tusk builds are very unique playstyle. I really like them. But they are difficult to use, so they could have done with a few buffs. And I think the ram damage obviously could have been up to like 80 or 90%. I don't think it's fair that on a ram damage build or ram damage cabin, you can actually kill yourself by ramming your enemy too much, you know. It doesn't make much sense to me, but it's a good change. Okay, Bigram. Tonnage increased, power penalty reduced, good. Bigrams in wheel. Okay, so they help the turn a bit, that's good. All Bigrams now use one weapon group, like robotic legs. Now that's the best one of all. Now, for those who don't know, there's a bit of like a mini exploit on Bigrams, whereby, say if you had a Bigram spider with, say, 10 legs and you have 5 on each side going from front to back, what you would do is you would have the front 4, for example, on wheel mode, and the back 6 on leg mode. Now, because of the way the game sort of engine rendered it or understood the build, it would kind of like trick the game into thinking the build only had the 6 legs. So what happened was you could turn the Bigram this way far more efficiently like this than you could otherwise, which was like an exploit, obviously. So it's good that they're finally changing that. That probably should have came in absolutely ages ago during the Bigram meta, or during the last Bigram meta, I should say. But, you know, better late than never. Meat grinders, increase in mass, tonnage reduced, good. Power penalty, good. Speed of turning in place reduced by 15%. That's the best one. The reason meat grinders are so strong is because they are able to turn on the spot so efficiently. So that's a really good change. Petrol, no one cares. Helicopter. Tengu. I think that's the blowtorch gun, if I remember correctly. What have they done? Recharge time increased. Increased the perk's blocking time. Maybe I'm thinking of it. This must be a PC thing, because apparently this is being nerfed as overpowered. You never see these things on console, so yeah, this must be a PC thing. If I'm thinking of the right build, I'm thinking of the right gun, which I believe is the blowtorch gun, which does nothing. Anyway, moving on. Cheetah. Maximum carbon speed increased from 13 to 14. Tonnage increase. That's cool. By the looks of things, they're nerfing Finwheel wheel builds and they're buffing cheetahs. So in a perfect world, we would have, say, fin-wheeled type dogs and cheetah aegis type dogs being as competitive as each other, just to get some more variety in what your setup on a wheel build was. Because since the Finwheel come out, there's been no real reason to run anything other than Finwheel for the most part. Okay, so that's a good change. Legendary parts, Heather. Energy consumption reduced from 14 to 13. It's a good change, but it's not enough. Now, the reason why swarms, for example, are the best artillery type weapons in the game is because of their energy. They're only 11 energy each, whereas mandrakes and heathers now are 13. It's just too much of a power drain for you to have like a decent build around there. And swarms are just easier to shoot in general. So I feel like you could have made this. We could have downed the energy consumption for mandrakes and heathers down to 12, and swarms still probably would have been more effective. But it's in the right direction. Wretches, durability increase, very good. They're they're one of the worst weapons in the game, mostly because they have a big old hitbox and pathetic durability. Honestly, you get up to about 500, and I feel like they still wouldn't be a strong legendary. They really need some help. So yeah, it's a good change, but yeah, not far enough. Fukibari, projectile speed increase, spread reduction, spread. Increasing spread after firing is reduced. Oh, so I'm guessing, because I think it shoots like 3 bolts per gun, is it? So I'm guessing after the first bolt shoots, you would have increased spread on the second. So I like the spread reduction. That makes sense to me. I don't like the projectile speed increase because at the moment, the Fukibari, for example, is a very hard gun to land your shots with. But if you land your shots with them, it does a lot of damage. Now, I really like those type of weapons in CROSSOUT, and what the devs have had a history of doing is making a gun too easy to use And then because it's so easy to use, they will nerf its damage eventually. And then it just turns into like another forgotten gun in CROSSOUT, which are plenty. So I like the spread reduction. I don't like the projectile speed increase. Nothing. Yeah, same as the Gungnir. It's a good change overall. Be very interested to see if it gets into the Clan Wars meta going forward. Fortune. Added the perk. As a projectile travels the first 200 meters, its damage and blast rate increases. It's like a heligun, I guess, kind of. Projectile lifetime. Okay, this is good. So basically, they're trying to make fortunes more like mine layers, which is what they're supposed to be. They're legendary porcupines at the end of the day that can't really be used as mine layers. So now they are, which will be interesting. And they're increasing the rate of fire. Now that's actually the biggest buff. That's incredible. For those who are wondering what that means the time between the first fortune being shot and the last fortune, because it shoots free. So a reduction in that means you can get all your shots off in a tighter window. It also means it's just easier to aim, because one of the reasons why fortunes are such a pain to use is because you've got to lead your shot whilst you're shooting, if that makes sense. So when you press the trigger, you've got to keep leading as your gun shoots all three of the fortunes, which makes it so difficult to use, and which is why you haven't really seen them in the meta. So now that they're reducing that, and they're making it more like a mine layer, like a porcupine, that's a really good change. Compiler. They're reducing the spread on the recoil. I'm surprised by that. I thought the compiler was fine, to be honest, because the recoil is meant for heavier builds because it's a heavy cannon, so the recoil wasn't really an issue. And the spread was bad, but I thought that was kind of like part of the gun because it was already the best legendary cannon in my opinion. And I thought you could just put like a harmonizer on it. It was meant to be run with a harmonizer, for example, to handle the accuracy. But I don't think it needed the buff. It's going to be by far definitely the best legendary cannon by now, but I don't think it'll be overpowered or anything. So Imugi, projectile speed reduction, reload. So a big Imugi nerf. This must be a PC thing as well, because every time I see an Imugi on console, he just does nothing, to be honest. Maybe there's something good with PC that I'm not thinking about, but that's surprising. But yeah, it's not going to change anything. On Imugis are just going to be as useless on console as they were before. Kaiju, getting a nerf, shot time increase. Now, I think this is because in the last battle for Uranium, you had a bunch of like Kaiju cars at 10k, and they were very strong. Now, I don't like them changing the actual weapon of the Kaiju. I think if something's too strong in Battle for Uranium, they should just increase the power score, because that's the entire point anyway. Now that they've nerfed the Kaiju, they've just made it even less viable at higher end power score, you know? So I feel like that was a bad change for the most part. Charybdis now activates when approaching an enemy from the rear quarter of the armor car, not the rear half. So they've nerfed the Charybdis, which is strange because I thought the Harvester was much better anyway. It's got more durability, it's got a bigger surface area, and I don't see why. And it's got the Charybdis doesn't have much less energy consumption anyway. I think the Charybdis is 6.5, he's 8 or something, so it's not a big difference. So I thought the Harvester was better anyway, and I don't see a point in Charybdis, to be honest. I don't think it needed a nerf. Griffin. Perk now reduces recharge time of modules and drones by 5%. In addition to hiding from radars. I don't know why the Griffin got a I don't know why the Griffin got such a good buff, because it was already one of the strongest cabins in the game, in my opinion. Like I said in my best cabins video, just being able to keep yourself away from verifiers and oculuses makes you feel like a god when you put it with Yeti. Sometimes it's absolutely incredible. So I don't know why they've given it like a cheetah buff as well. Now that I think about it, a Griffin and a cheetah on the same build should be absolutely insane. Okay, moving on to the Hippogriff. Now, perk active time reduced from 7 to 6 seconds. Perk recharge reduced from 25 to 12. Right, so a really big buff for the Hippogriff. But to be honest, the biggest problem with the Hippogriff is the fact that its inbuilt radar does not have the range of a fused Doppler. So that's the main reason why no one uses it. In my opinion, it probably should be the other way around, that if you have the radar cabin, it should have a better, or at least as good a range as a fused Doppler. So it's a nice buff, but just affect the actual range of its perk would be much better. Okay, Whaler speed reduced from 80 to 76. It's fine. Like I said, they're trying to get away from the fin whale cars, or trying to nerf them a bit. And the Whaler is the most competitive cabin on those fin whale cars. I feel like it'll still probably be the best, but it's a fine change. I don't think it needed it personally. Okay, so Tori, maximum perk. Basically, they're increasing the time it takes to charge up and reducing the time it takes to lose it. This is a good change. The Satori was a little bit overtuned. I'm surprised actually they didn't just nerf the max damage, but I guess with the changes now, it's a little bit more of a skillful cabin to keep that drift going. You need to be a good driver, you know, to actually make use of that perk more. Okay, mainframe. There's no way mainframe's on the list. It's in the battle pass. The cabin's perk no longer charges up from damage dealt by the cabin's owner. Ah, right, yeah, okay. Basically, there's a thing in the game whereby you can have, say, a Typhoon mainframe hover, for example. Now, it might sound like a really bad idea to have such a heavy cabin on a mainframe, but what you'll do, you build it like a normal Clan Wars Typhoon hover, with, but say, at 60 pieces out of 80, and then those last 20 pieces you will have attached to a rift at the back of your build, and they'll be the heaviest armor pieces you can get in the game. And then the idea is you spawn into a match, you detach those 20 pieces, the build thinks that your cabin has just taken a bunch of damage because it just loses a bunch of health, and you'll get the mainframe's perks, so the extra power, the extra damage, and the extra damage resist on basically a completely built Typhoon hover, for example. And that's obviously quite the exploit. It's actually really funny because I did a video a couple of weeks ago about the mainframe, and basically the general rule is the developers will only nerf something that's in the current battle pass if it's a completely game-breaking exploit like this. If it's just overpowered and the stats are too good, then they won't actually change it until they've made their money. But yeah, that's pretty funny, but yeah. Moving on, Finwhale perk no longer affects stability. Truth be told, I forgot it even did. I don't see why they don't just nerf the root cause of the problem, and it's that the Finwhale is so effective because it gives you that 50% damage resist. They've kind of nerfed everything around that perk, so they've nerfed the cabin speed, nerfed the wheels, now they're nerfing the spread, but they could have just changed it, nerfed the number down from 50%, because that's the main reason why the Finwhale has been meta as hell since it came in, you know. Okay, moving on. Pilgrim, Photon, and Nova cabins. All of them again, a mass reduction, tonnage increase, and acceleration, or mass effect and acceleration buff, basically. What's the reason for this? Should change the terrain, making this more relevant to movement parts capable of moving in all directions. Oh, okay, so they're trying to buff it for use on, say, like atoms and omnis and stuff like that, which kind of makes sense. It is suited like Nova and Photon cabins on destructors, which is a good change, so I quite like that. Okay, moving on. All shotguns except Arathron. Increase the projectile's radius. That's good. Any buff you can give the shotguns at the moment is a good one because they are just terrible. Like, breaker players break my heart at the moment. It's so sad. It's so useless. All protective fields. Vulnerability to blast damage reduced from 100% to 50%. So they're really buffing any Aegis builds, to be honest, by the looks of it. For those who don't know, so any protective fields in the game, they are resistant to energy damage because they are themselves an energy field, and they are vulnerable to explosive damage. Now, that's a really cool like hidden mechanic in the game, which I love. But they kind of I don't see like why it needed to be nerfed, as I really like that rule for the most part. And finally, we got Waltz and Helcon. Again, additional weld points. That's fine. More guns in the game should have kind of welding points, in my opinion, because that way you just increase the variety of what you can mount along. Right, then we got just the interface and some stuff. So that's pretty much it for the patch notes, guys, and we'll call it a day here. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you for tomorrow's video.